some advice that I have, some of the hard lessons that I've learned, and yeah, let's get right into it. So I do have like a bit of legitimacy when it comes to talking about this, because I have had, and especially in the COVID-19 period, I had at maximum I had like 5 private students. Now that might seem like a small number, but that was giving me about nearly $3,000 a month Australian. So yeah, that's the most I've had, and I've consistently had private students, private adult students throughout the last 2 or 3 years. So this video is really for someone who is living overseas, they're living in China, or they're living in Asia, or anywhere in the world, and some of my advice or my ideas about how to get private students and how to keep them once you have them, because it's kind of difficult to keep them. I don't have five students now. I only have 2 at the moment, and you know, it is difficult to keep them long term. But I think of all the people I know, I've kind of kept mine for the longest. So I can just talk about what I've learned. First of all, like, depending on how you meet these people, it's really dependent. I had already been working for a company that was providing adult English lessons, so a lot of my first students I met through that work. My experience, like, of having students that came to me from other sources has really taught me that when you're not working for a famous company, people are just like making an assumption about you straight away. So it's been tough. Like, I've definitely had like a few students, it's like getting them on the line, they slip away or whatever. But anyway, I'll start to give you some advice. So first of all, when you meet them, you want to give them, in my personal view, all of this is my personal opinion. Like, people can maybe talk about how they've built adult English schools in the late 2010s or the 2020s, and if they've done that, wow, you know, I would like to watch their video. But how have I basically been able to double my income at certain times for years at a time with private students? So that's what I'm going to be sharing with you. The first thing is to be like giving them a lot of choices, giving them a lot of options, and showing that you are professional. So it's a really good idea to, as an ESL teacher, gather as many resources as you can. So PDFs of books, any corporate teaching material, because adult students are very attracted to that, like any of the Pearson products or any like similar like business English products. If you have those on PDF and you can show them on a computer, that's really going to impress the students, and they're going to feel like comforted that they do have a structure, that they're working with something that is, especially in the China or the Asian context, something that is famous, something that is proven, something that is well known. I think that's very important all over the world, actually. I can't imagine that people in Europe and other places are just interested in teachers just creating their own tailor-made material. But you also want to be able to show that you can produce your own material, and that you are somebody that they can respect as having created your own material. So show them some PPTs and stuff. I always pay for using the Microsoft products. I pay for the whole Microsoft suite, which is about $100 a year, I think. And that's really useful in terms of like being able to show a PPT, and with those programs, like particularly PPT, they make themselves. I mean, you put the photo in and it's all done straight away. But yeah, so that's the first thing I want to say. Gather resources, get the most resources that you can, and give them like an example of like what a typical class could be. So yeah, number 1 is resources. Number 2 is pretty obvious, but always be nicely dressed, like clean clothes. Wipe your computer down with wet wipes. If you're a smoker, maybe don't smoke before the class, particularly the first class. Obviously, like, be well groomed and all that kind of thing. And err on the side of listening, like always err on the side of listening with these adult students. Now, that's just like soft teacher skill stuff. Let's get very specific. A question that I sometimes think about is, should I ask for them to prepay for the classes? It's a tough one. It really is a tough one. I haven't had a lot of experience at getting students to prepay, but I've kind of switched over to thinking that it really is the best and probably the only way to guarantee that you'll have a lot of classes with that particular student, because one of the problems with adults is that they always cancel, they always change their minds. Another thing that I've learned is give them books, give them things to hold. So if you're getting paid 500 RMB for a class, if you buy, and I used to do this a lot, buy like a National Geographic or some other kind of literature. Normally I would give them a National Geographic magazine, and that costs about 50 RMB. So yeah, like in a sense you've lost 50 RMB, but when they're walking away with gifts and they're walking away with that, they know that you're like really interested in their English and so on. The other thing that I have done and that I learned at my adult English teaching job, and it's not always important, but for some students it is important, send them written feedback. Like send them written feedback, and they do appreciate that. It doesn't have to be extensive, but as long as you're just sending them something, that can be really useful. Keeping a regular time. So this is obviously like something that you might think, well, why would you do that? But when you get to know somebody and you teach them for a long time, you can start to, they come into the friend zone, they come into that friend territory very quickly, because you are spending time with them. They're often the same age as you, and you've got a lot of things in common, and you discuss personal matters, and they become like your friends. But just honestly, on behalf of the teacher, like just really try to avoid changing the times. Like if you are changing the times, the student begins to change the times, and then the classes can start to become impossible. So I think that keeping a fixed time, keeping a time available as much as possible is a really good idea. Now, adult students, how to keep them? Like, how do you keep them? How do you keep teaching the same people again and again? It is tough. I think the best way that I've found is to just make it a part of their routine. So Friday at 2:00, I taught a couple of ladies at Friday at 2:00 for months and months, almost a year. And it was just every Friday. I didn't even have to give them a message about the class. They didn't message me. It was just Friday. And that can be a really useful way. Now, where do you find these students? Like, for example, I got some students from the school that I was working at, but where do you get students apart from that? You get students from friends. Usually you get referrals from friends. So it's one of those things where be nice to everyone. Tell people that you're in this business, that you're teaching people, and you will get students from time to time. Not a lot maybe, but you will get enough to make a big difference in your life. So just like, don't just, think, oh, that person, they can't help me, they're not important to me, whatever. Be nice to everyone, be friendly to everyone, try to have a good reputation as much as possible, and you will get students coming to you from different sources. I imagine wherever you are, but just make it known that you do this kind of work. If you're going off to the bar and you're drinking like 10 beers a night or whatever, it's unlikely that you're going to be someone who is going to be considered for these kinds of things. Try to be as much as you can like a respectable person, in terms of like whatever your lifestyle is. That would be my advice. And since I quit drinking, or I pretty much quit drinking, like I have like 1 beer a month or something, since I quit drinking to that level, my private work has like, I'm turning work down. So I'm really quite impressed and quite surprised about that. But there is a shortage of foreign English teachers in China at the moment. Now, one of the issues that can arise with this kind of thing is it starts to get a bit personal. So my basic like modus operandi is, unless they bring up something personal in their life, I never do. So if they start to talk about their child, yeah, you can talk about their child. If they start to talk about their husband, you can ask a couple of polite questions. But don't be, getting into their private life without them leading you into it. That's probably the best thing. The same with work. Like students don't always want to talk about their work. So make sure that you have materials to use. Now, class length. What is the ideal class length? For me, the ideal class length now is 3 hours. And this is going to sound a bit ridiculous perhaps, because 3 hours is a long time, but it's also a lot of money. So if you're charging like, 50, 60, 70, whatever dollars an hour, and you're teaching for 3 hours, yeah, that's a lot of money, and you're in the same place. But it's also like, it's a lot of work for them. They really feel like they've got a lot of English. They feel like they've learned a lot. What should the structure of that class be? What I like to do is, 10 minutes of this, 10 minutes of that, 20 minutes of this, 20 minutes of that. I call it like a pizza class, actually, where the whole time period's divided into a slice. And have like 10-minute breaks, perhaps on the hour. Let them smoke a cigarette, or let them go to the bathroom or whatever. And 20 minutes of this, 20 minutes of that, 20 minutes of this, 20 minutes of that. Now, what is this? What is that? I have grammar books, I have vocabulary books, I have those business English books, I have other material. So I just like break it up into 20-minute chunks, and I'm like kind of quite disciplined, like not to the extent of like, enough, we're changing now, but just roughly following that 20-minute time change. Also, like downloading videos and introducing videos to like make the different class segments seem more interesting. That's really important. I mean, a lot of people have the view that adults can just focus for like 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever. But having that like 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, 20 minutes, the students, they're always moving, and I really think they enjoy that. I think for adults, that's a very, very important part of teaching them English. I mean, that's just that's my personal view, but making sure that you're just like keeping them moving, and giving them more easy things to do and more difficult things to do. So not always giving them stuff above their level. They say that, it should be like language ability +1 or something. But I think sometimes like turning it down a notch and just letting them just cruise and do something that they find easy to do is also a good idea. So turning it up, turning it down. And yeah, so that's like all I wanted to say about that. Private ESL gigs, they do exist, and in a country like China, or even like I imagine Japan or Korea, these kinds of gigs can be the difference between, you saving enough money to retire and you having to work, for the rest of your life. It can be the difference between like you having enough money to live comfortably and save a lot of money, and living like a kind of like can't afford this, can't afford that kind of life, and putting off enjoyment into the future. So yeah, I highly recommend that anyone who's teaching English look for these kinds of side jobs with adults if they're interested in teaching adults. I've focused on adults in this video, and yeah, that's all I wanted to say. And I hope that it's given somebody some ideas, given somebody some inspiration perhaps to say yes to somebody suggesting they teach some English. And yeah, have a wonderful day.